Welcome to Business Suite. In our program today, we'll take an in-depth look at how businesses can make use of the increasing popularity of Facebook, corporate culture and the bottom line, and the use of bartering in businesses. Also, we'll have the entire interview with Jean Lorichin of Procom in our segment Leadership Conversations. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Culture in a business impact the bottom line. In our management feature, we spoke to Francis Wade, President and CEO of Framework Consulting, to find out the implications of certain corporate practices on a business.
Francis, we often hear of the Jamaican culture.
Yes.
And we can literally describe it and put it in some very colorful terms. But from a corporate perspective, what exactly is corporate culture?
Well, corporate culture is, when it's not defined as something distinct or something separate, tends to be the same as Jamaican culture. Mm-hmm. So that means that it carries with it all of the good points and the bad points, the historical weaknesses that Jamaican culture might have. Mm-hmm. However, companies can go past just adopting what they've inherited from Jamaican culture and create distinct cultures that are sort of distinct. For Sandals, for example, has a culture that is made by itself, by its own owners, carried into fruition by its employees, enjoyed by its customers, but it's not the same as the culture that you'd find in every other hotel. So what Sandals has been able to do is to create its own corporate culture that has an impact in and of itself. And the corporate culture, once it gets created, needs to be managed, measured, improved, thought of as an entity in and of itself. So it's not the same as Jamaican culture.
But within a corporate context, the culture of a company is largely dictated and originates, I would think, from the founder, the person who leads the organization.
Right.
And so if that person comes to the organization with bad attitude, bad habits, right, more than likely one's going to see these manifested in the culture. Right.
You sort of get an unconscious sort of culture that gets, if it's a family company, for example, many family-owned companies just adopt the culture that the family has. So there's a big daddy and a big mommy, and if there's kids and if there's relationships that are built in the family, those relationships transfer over into the company. But again, it's more unconscious sort of unthinking adaptation. So I don't think that the founder sits down and thinks, well, I want the same culture as I have in my family. No, but because they're not thinking about culture in sort of an explicit way, then they end up just taking on the culture of the family.
So how do we differentiate between the culture and what we Jamaicans refer to as just bad attitude, bad habit, bad customer service, total lack of regard for your staff, your employees? Or is it one and the same?
Well, you could say it's one and the same. But when a company goes to create a culture, they look at specific behaviors, ways of thinking, values, specific conversations that they create so that they can embed them in every single one of the employees and every single one of the new employees. So there's a very sort of almost a formula to follow, let's put it that way, where the culture is created from, hopefully from scratch, to be the way that the owners or the shareholders want it to be. You know, Google, for example, is as good as it is, not because it happens to be in America or it happens to be in the part of America that it is. The founders of Google deliberately created a Google-like culture, separate and distinct from many of its neighbors.
Non-conformist type of a jeans and t-shirt kind of thing.
An environment that they
My
said,
kind of life.
That's your kind of life. But they've created an environment where the employees don't want to go home at the end of the day because work is so sweet. It doesn't feel like work. They created an an environment where work feels like play.
But you make a very important point, the whole issue of creating. Can you really create a culture separate and apart from the personality of the founder and the person leading the organization? No?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at football teams or cricket teams, the teams have different cultures depending on the captain, the players, the coach. You know, some teams are awful. Everybody blames everybody else. No one takes responsibility, and a few people try to be try to show off and show everybody how good they are. Other teams work well together. They set aside their own individual agendas to accomplish a much greater agenda. Now, the process of creating those cultures, you might say, is evidence of the fact that, yes, you can create a culture. Absolutely.
So let me ask a question now. To the average person looking on, and you walk into an organization, how is this culture really manifested? How do you know when a company has a particular culture, a particular style? When you walk in, what are the signs, what are the signals you would look for, what you would pick up?
Well, some of the things I look at just walking into, before I even walk into the company, if there's a parking lot, the parking lot tells you a lot about the culture. Who is parked where?
What do you mean?
Is there management parking? Is there a spot for the CEO? Or does everybody park in the closest available spot?
If there is a spot for the CEO, what does that mean?
Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it definitely says that.
Because I have a parking spot in it.
You have that kind of culture. Find you out.
That was only joking.
But in some companies, the CEO is given perks. And every opportunity is made to elevate the CEO from his or her peers or everyone else in the company. Right. A separation is purposely created. In other companies, I used to work for AT&T Bell Labs in New Jersey. And we had Nobel Prize winners and some very famous people working in the company. And it was very egalitarian, it was very flat. And there was no space for the CEO. The idea of doing that would fly in the face of the culture that was created, which is that we're all bright people, or we're all hardworking people, and we all treat each other as colleagues. And the hierarchy is something that we don't really respect more than so.
But there is a critical factor with respect to culture, though, that I think we really need to spend some time looking at, and it's the whole issue of profitability. A lot of us don't realize that how we organize our business and set it up to function,
right,
especially relates to culture, has a significant impact on the profitability of the organization.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what many companies do when there's a loss of sales or shrinking of margins or a loss of market share is they look for the guilty people and try to get rid of them. Sometimes that works. Oftentimes the person that comes in to replace the person who left just ends up adopting the culture that was there before, and business continues as usual. So companies need to look behind the person often who isn't doing well, or behind the business result that isn't where you want it to be, to see if it's a function of the culture or if it's a function of the person. If it's a function of the culture, then getting rid of the person can only make things worse. Yeah, because someone who's coming in brand new is going to come in and look around and figure, okay, here's what I do to